Most people have far more control over their financial destiny than they believe. It's a pretty bold statement, isn't it? Especially right now, when it feels like literally everything, from brand to your weekly groceries, is just getting more and more expensive. But this quote strikes at the very heart of a massive, kind of uncomfortable, yet incredibly empowering truth.
So, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into Caleb Hammer's really fascinating appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience. If you aren't familiar with Caleb, he's this financial educator who literally sits down with everyday people and audits their finances right there in real time. We're going to uncover exactly how your daily behaviors, your psychology, and those little habits are silently shaping your financial outcomes, and, much more importantly, how you can actually take control of them.
Section 1. The root of financial outcomes.
Okay, let's dive into this. We need to look at where Caleb's philosophy actually comes from, because it's definitely not just theory. It's born from very real personal experience. Caleb wasn't born with a silver spoon, and he didn't have some fancy degree in high finance. As a young adult, he was actually deep in debt himself, struggling with the exact same blind spots and, frankly, terrible habits that he now helps other people fix. Then came his turning point, and it wasn't a lottery win or a massive inheritance. It was radical behavior change. He realized that financial literacy is a learnable skill. It's not a genetic trait. He's living proof that changing your habits is the true root of financial success.
But honestly, why are so many of us struggling so badly with this? Well, consider this massive, glaring gap in how we grow up. School teaches us how to calculate the area of a trapezoid, which, let's be real, is a skill you use exactly never, but it completely ignores how compound interest or an APR works. This isn't just an accident. It's a much broader cultural deprioritization. We prioritize academic credentials, and the result? We have entire generations of adults entering the workforce completely financially illiterate, making massive life-altering decisions just by default, instead of by design.
Section 2. The psychology of spending.
To really understand those default decisions, we have to zoom out and look at the sociologically rich problem of why we spend the way we do. Here's a staggering mathematical reality for you. 20 to 30%. That is the amount of value a brand new car loses the literal second you drive it off the dealership lot. Mathematically speaking, it is one of the absolute worst financial decisions a human being can make. Yet Americans buy new cars at massive rates, usually financing them at high interest over 5 to 7 years. So why on earth do we do this to ourselves?
Well, it comes down to a battle between math and psychology. The cold hard math says, hey, buy a reliable used car, like a 2008 Honda Civic, with cash. But our psychology furiously resists that. We finance brand new cars because, driving an older car on a date or to the office feels embarrassing. We are literally willing to pay thousands of dollars in interest just to avoid a perceived awkward glance at a stoplight.
And that brings us perfectly to status-seeking behavior. It's purchasing items to signal success for that quick dopamine hit and social validation, all while totally masking your future financial anxiety. And it's not just cars, it's clothes, lavish vacations, phones. Social media has absolutely supercharged this. You aren't just trying to keep up with your next-door neighbors anymore, you're trying to keep up with a globally curated feed of aspirational influencers. The goalposts of what constitutes enough have been moved to an unreachable place.
Section 3. The macroeconomic landscape.
Now let's impartially pivot to the broader systemic forces at play, because the economic playing field is undeniably shifting. Look at the stark contrast between the previous generation and today. Back then, college tuition was pretty affordable, and the wage premium was a very reliable ticket to the middle class. Today, tuition costs have absolutely exploded. We're talking 3 to 5 times higher. Meanwhile, that wage premium has stagnated in a lot of fields, so you have millions of graduates carrying massive debt for degrees that often just function as credentialing signaling. At the exact same time, we have these highly competitive alternatives now, like YouTube and online courses. Compounding these crazy economic shifts is the digital environment we all live in. Social media algorithms are literally designed to maximize engagement, and neurologically, that means maximizing outrage and tribal reinforcement. This polarization completely traps people in ideological bubbles. It makes honest, nuanced conversations about economic policy and financial behavior nearly impossible to have.
And this complexity is incredibly visible when you look at the crisis of urban homelessness in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. The causes here are deeply complex, ranging from mental illness and addiction to genuine housing affordability. It is a severe policy challenge. Interestingly, data shows that some well-intentioned policies have sometimes actually worsened outcomes. The really critical takeaway from the source material here is that, yes, genuine systemic failures absolutely exist, but they don't fully explain individual outcomes, and they certainly don't absolve individual agency.
Section 4. The power of agency.
Okay, let's zoom back in on the individual. We're shifting from the blame game to absolute empowerment. This chart right here brilliantly illustrates Caleb's real-world findings. You can have someone making $120,000 a year who is completely broke, totally drowning in debt and living paycheck to paycheck. Meanwhile, someone making just $35,000 a year can be steadily building wealth. The difference? It's not the top-line income, it's their daily choices.
Getting to that point requires a total mindset shift. Externalizing blame, spending all your mental energy cataloging everything the system or the economy did to you, it leaves you with absolutely zero energy for action. Sure, it might be partially justified and it definitely relieves psychological pressure in the short term, but it ultimately disempowers you. Radical ownership is different. It means honestly looking in the mirror, examining your own decisions, and controlling what you actually can control.
Because look, financial disaster rarely happens overnight. It's sneaky. It starts with a forgotten $10 subscription. Then, you grab an unplanned restaurant meal because you're tired after work. That turns into a late-night Amazon impulse buy. And before you know it, you're trading in a perfectly good car for an unnecessary upgrade. Compounded over months and years, these tiny, seemingly trivial choices snowball into a massive financial disaster. But flip that around and good choices snowball into a fortress of financial stability.
Section 5. Taking radical ownership.
So how do we actually fix this? Well, Caleb is moving beyond just giving inspiration to creating concrete tools. First, there's his show, Financial Audit. It's basically reality TV meets financial counseling, forcing a very honest, uncomfortable reckoning. Second, he's developing DollarWise, which is an upcoming budgeting app designed to turn those reality checks into daily habit tracking right on your phone. And third, he's elevating other creators to make finance genuinely engaging across the internet. It's a whole ecosystem for building better habits.
Okay, let's wrap this up with the core takeaways from this explainer. First off, behavior drives your outcomes far more than your circumstances do. Second, you have got to take the initiative to self-educate financially. Traditional schools just aren't going to do it for you. Third, definitely acknowledge systemic issues, but never, ever surrender your individual agency. Fourth, realize that social status seeking is a primary killer of your wealth. And finally, remember that accountability is not a punishment. It's incredibly liberating.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. If your past choices got you to exactly where you are sitting right now, what radical choice are you making today to rewrite your financial destiny? The tools are out there, the math is totally clear, and the power is entirely in your hands. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, take ownership and take action.